Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Mechanics of Machine class. Today, we'll be starting with the new unit, that is unit number 3, called as the friction. We already completed the 2 units uh, where every unit carries the 30 marks. So, we are almost completed the 60 marks syllabus. Okay, and even this unit carries about the 25 marks. So, when we see the weightage of the first 3 units, it is almost 100 marks. Okay, so we'll be starting with the third unit, that is called as the friction. Okay, so before going to the definition of the friction, let us understand what exactly the friction means. Okay, so to discuss that, let us understand the two scenarios. Okay, when you walk on the road and when you walk on the ice surface. Okay, so you will feel the difference. When you walk on the road, you will walk comfortably, whereas when you walk on the ice surface, you will feel uncomfortable while walking. Okay, so reason you can think what will be the reason for that. The reason for that to walk the comfortably on the road is because of the friction between your feet and the friction between the road. Because of this friction, you can walk comfortably. When you come to the second scenario, that is when you walk on the ice surface, there is no proper friction between your feet and the ice surface. Okay, so in that case, in this case, we'll find that the friction is the necessary to walk properly on the road. Okay, let us come to the another example where it is not advantageous. Okay, let us discuss some of the engine parts or parts in the your machines, for example lathe machines, drilling machines, or shaping machines. Okay, whenever there is the mating of the two parts, either in the sliding contact or in the rotating contact, so what will happen is during this motion the parts will slide with the each other, and because of that there is the generation of the lot of heat, and because of the generation of this lot of heat there is the loss of efficiency. Okay, so because of this the friction is a disadvantages when it comes to the machine parts. Okay, so you can see some of the cases it is advantageous and some of the cases it is disadvantageous. Okay, so this is what the definition. Okay, see, resistance to the motion of the body is known as the friction. Okay, it will oppose the motion of the body by providing the friction between that part and the surface. Now, for example, I given here walking on the road, motion of the locomotive rails, transmission of the power by the belts. Okay, or the friction between the wheels and the road. Okay, so these are the some of the basic examples of the friction and the definition of the friction. Okay, so next we'll understand different types of the friction. Okay, there are different types of the friction classified based upon the when the body is in the motion or when the body is in the rest. Okay, so there are different types. For example, static friction. Yes, what do you mean by a static? Static means when the body is at rest. Okay, that means the static. Okay, and a friction because of the body when it is at rest, we call it as the static friction. Okay, so dynamic friction, and the dynamic name itself is indicates something which is in the motion. Something which is in the motion we call as the dynamic. Okay, and the friction because of this motion of the body we call it as the dynamic friction. Okay, so dynamic friction they are again classified based upon the different motions. Okay, the motion may be a sliding motion, motion may be a rolling motion, or it may be a pivot. Okay, when the parts are sliding with respect to each other, then we call it as a sliding friction. When the parts they are rolling with respect to each other, we call it a rolling friction. For example, ball bearings. And pure friction, it is a friction exhibited by the body due to the motion of the rotation in case of the footstep bearing. Okay, see all these type of the footstep bearing or rolling bearing. Okay, that will be discussing in the detail as we move ahead in this chapter. Okay, so next we'll try to understand what are the different laws of the frictions. Okay, so what are the laws of the friction? See, there are different points you have to remember. Okay, first point is the force of the friction is directly proportional to the normal load between the surface. Okay, so for example, if I draw this is the body, if draw this is the body, this is the force which is applied on the body, and this is the normal force. Okay, so what it says is the force of the friction, this is force of the friction, is directly proportional to this normal force, that is the F is directly proportional to Rn. Okay, Rn is the normal force between the surface. Okay, this is the what the first law states. What is this next? The force of friction is independent of the area of the contact surface for a given normal load. Okay, so what it's saying is the force of the friction which is acting on the body, which is independent of the contact surface. Okay, so this is the surface, this is the surface which is in contact with this place. Okay, so it is saying that it is independent, whatever may be the area of the contact, it is independent of the force of friction. Okay, third law what it states is the force of friction depends upon the material of which the contact surface are made. Yes, that's what we discuss in the different scenario. When it is on the road, it exhibit the more friction. If the same part is placed on the ice, it exhibit the less friction. Okay, this is what the difference. Okay, next, the force of friction is independent of the velocity of the sliding of the one body relative to the other body. The force of friction which is there, okay, it is independent of the velocity. So what is velocity? It is the relative velocity. Relative velocity between what? Between this part and this surface. Okay, I hope it is clear. Okay, so this is the different laws of friction and it will be asked for 5 marks. Okay, you have to state these different points which are related to the laws of the friction. Okay, thank you.